Welcome. My name is Kelly Anderson, and this is Fanimated, the animation fan podcast where we get a chance to geek out about our favorite animated media. Josh Palmer has joined me today to discuss the 2001 computer animated film Shrek. This week, our topic was voted on by our super cool patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to support the technical costs of the show and gain some sweet rewards, go to www.patreon.com/fanimated. In the meantime, Josh and I have lots to discuss, like the history of Dreamworks animation and the faults of most award shows. So let's get started and let's get animated. Welcome, Josh. So glad to have you back on the podcast.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm so happy to be back.
We're talking about Shrek, the Dreamworks animated film. And do you remember watching this much as a kid?
Oh, yes. I watched this movie a lot of times as a kid. It was in 2001, I think it came out. So I must have been like 9. And I think I watched it so many times that Donkey has become a part of my personality a little bit. I'm not sure I like to admit that fact, but the fact that I sing, I'm all alone, there's no one here beside me, every time I'm by myself.
Oh my goodness, I love it. Shrek was voted on by my patrons on Patreon as our movie topic for today. Starting out, I was like, I love Shrek. Honestly, growing up, we watched it all the time. It has a huge place in my childhood memories. But I honestly didn't think I would have this much to say about Shrek, but I suddenly do. Rewatching it, I was like, this movie is so good. And
funny how that works. It's just you didn't realize how much you wanted to say, and you watch it again, and you're like, oh, I really care about this thing.
I do. And it's funny because I feel like it sometimes gets some bad vibes because the franchise as a whole is kind of overbearing. Yeah,
it is. Well, and the fact that it achieved meta meme status on the internet and has become such a huge internet troll, that does something to your memory of it.
Yes, it's definitely just ingrained in our culture, and no one really knows what to do with it.
Which is so funny. I think that of all things, it makes sense that it would be Shrek, because it's so meta in the first place. It includes so many fairy tale and pop culture things in the movie itself, and so for the fact that it went into our culture and then became itself, that's why it's such a that's why I use the term meta meme. It's about itself, which is just so funny to me.
So starting out watching this film, the first thing is just how crazy it is how much animation has changed in such a short time. Computer animation specifically. If you look at something that came out this year, like Toy Story 4 or How to Train Your Dragon 3, the detail is astounding compared to this early 2000s computer animation. It's crazy.
Yeah, the grass doesn't really move in the back, or the flowers is just kind of there, and it's fine. Yeah, I totally agree.
And the hair or the details of the clothes, there is some there, and it's good, but it's not quite up to par anymore. But it still ages well though, because the characters and the story are so memorable that it doesn't matter.
Right, yeah. It does have something very unique about it that makes it memorable, and I think we should start. Do you know much about the history of the movie and where it came from?
Well, first off, I'm a huge Dreamworks fan, as I think we've established.
Yes, I think we have.
And Shrek not only is, I think, the film that really brought Dreamworks into the media's attention, but also I did not know this until doing some digging, but light digging, I should say. It's just Wikipedia, people. But Shrek was in development right from the start. They kind of gave the okay for production while Ants was still in production, and Ants was the first DreamWorks film. So that surprised me and makes me super excited because this thing that they've worked on for so long, and these films do take a long time, became kind of their DreamWorks staple, I think. Like, Shrek is to DreamWorks what Mickey Mouse is to Disney, in my opinion.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah. It's like the memorable character that you think of when you think of DreamWorks.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. And the fact that like Mickey Mouse was so simple, so basic, and started like this huge wave. Shrek kind of did the same thing,
Yes.
Everything changed after that. I guess I didn't really think about it that way.
Absolutely. And they're both such iconic, memorable characters. Like, Green, you get the little ears, or with Mickey Mouse, has ears too. Like, the silhouette is very memorable.
It's even in the logo.
Yes, exactly. So Shrek definitely started this, not started, but I think pushed even further the popularity of computer animated films. And honestly, Pixar Toy Story was the start of the computer animated feature-length films. And Shrek, I think, really, really added to that momentum of boosting those films into our living rooms. Shrek came out in 2001. The last 2D animated film from DreamWorks ever came out in 2003, and that was Sinbad. So I really think Shrek was the turning for DreamWorks in particular, away from 2D animation and wholeheartedly into solely computer animated, fully computer animated. Before that, of course, a lot of people were using computer animation as a support system to the 2D animation, but Shrek really was part of that movement, switching solely into computer animated films. DreamWorks really strives to be at the forefront of technology, and I think that was just another step that made them different and made them separate from Disney, because honestly, Disney was way behind on the whole computer animated thing. Because, I mean, I'll talk about this when we talk about Toy Story at some point, but I love this. I love the story of Toy Story, like how it came about and how Disney was like, we don't want a whole movie just computer animated. Are you crazy? And it's like, well, look at us now. This is all we do. Anyway, so back to Shrek. So one of those things, like we were talking about, the computer animation has changed a lot. But one of the things that was different for DreamWorks at the time was in Ants, they had the facial recognition feature that they could control all these different muscles in the character's face. So it looks more realistic and how things move, etc.
As they're talking and stuff, yeah.
Right. And Shrek was the first film they had that same sort of muscle features throughout the entire body. So like Shrek could have a double chin, and all these other things could happen while he's moving and talking. And that was something I recognized too, rewatching it, was they were able to make Shrek incredibly expressive. Like, Mike Myers is brilliant, has brilliant voice acting, absolutely brilliant. But the animators were able to really utilize that and create the visual character that is Shrek. And I really love it.
Yeah, in such a way that like the voice acting in I think in animated films, the goal is that you can't even separate the actor from the character, because it's like it's so new. You take this voice and this visual and you put it together and it makes something completely different. When I hear the voice, granted it's Mike Myers with a Scottish accent, so that helps, but it like, I can't even think Mike Myers. It's just Shrek. It just is.
Yeah.
And that is really special. That doesn't happen very often.
And a little thing about sidetrack about the Scottish accent, he actually recorded the entire thing without one. And he came.
Oh, I heard that.
And he came back.
And he did the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
They had to redo it.
They had to even redo some of the animation because they had already animated some of that dialogue. And he came back and was like, no, wait, let me do it again, basically. What I read was that his inspiration was that his mother used to use a Scottish accent telling bedtime stories. And I think that's just even more special. And honestly, the Scottish accent changes it entirely. And it's so wonderful. So I'm glad.
It makes it.
Yeah, I'm glad that Mike Myers cared so much about it that he was like, I'm going to come back and redo everything, like redo the whole thing.
I know, the whole thing. And I heard that Steven Spielberg wrote him a letter after he had redone it and told him, like, thank you for redoing it. Like, It's so much better. Like, you've elevated it to a new level, which is, like, really cool because the fact that he was doing so much, like, it doesn't usually, it's kind of a pain when that sort of thing happens. And I'm sure it was, but the fact that he was thanked for it by Steven Spielberg, who, you know, he wasn't thoroughly involved in the entire rest of the film, but he definitely had a stake in how this film was going to go. From what I understand, he's the first person who bought the rights to the film, like the movie rights to the book Shrek, right? Isn't that Steven Spielberg?
He did, and his original idea was to make a more traditionally animated film for it, and the producer Jeffrey Katzenberg, they took it, kind of got it back from him and took it in a more direction of the computer animation, adult humor, all of that sort of thing. So I think they definitely had different visions, but I mean, Steven Spielberg saw the potential in this green ogre character, and obviously really admired Mike Myers for caring so much about it.
That reminds me, I think I watched a video on Shrek's, like, impact on Disney and Dreamworks, because there was such a big difference, you know. Disney having, I don't remember if Disney had Pixar, like, at that time, if they were one.
No, they didn't. Merged later.
Okay, so at this time, then it was like mid-90s. Dreamworks was really was something separate, and Pixar was something separate, but there wasn't a lot of competition, you know. It's just Pixar or Disney, and Dreamworks comes on the scene with Shrek, and the video that I watched was basically saying that Shrek is Dreamworks', like, stab at Disney, saying, like, by the way, you don't own all of stories and all of storytelling. We're going to make fun of you and your characters and your world and everything that you are through this movie. And you can see it. Like,
yes,
the fact that Duloc is basically based off Disneyland is hilarious.
Yes, I was thinking about that too. Like, it's something that I didn't recognize as a child, but it's so wonderful. Even the opening and ending, how it's like, you open the fairy tale book, just like all of the classic Disney films, and they just, like, they're, like, turning everything on its head, and it's not the first story to, you know, make fun of fairy tales, but it certainly sparked inspiration for other films, like Hoodwinked and Happily Never After and other things. And I love it, and I love Disney too, but again, I just love Dreamworks so much, because it is different, and Shrek was, like, really they were able to, like, stake their Dreamworks flag and be like, we are here, and you don't own everything, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I really think that it's cool to have multiple different storytelling styles. I think that's super important, you know? You can't just have everything all through a Disney lens.
Yes.
The fact that, you know, this film came out and showed the world, like, oh, we can do animated films in a different way. Like, that's a big deal.
Yes, and hey, you know what? You can make a film that the entire family will enjoy. And yes, the entire family, including the adults, because again, I love Disney. I love Walt Disney. I'm so glad that it exists, but I it's frustrating because Walt Disney is the reason why our Western mindset is so animation is for children. Animation equals for children, and Shrek debunked that. And we're still, as a Western culture, fighting that assumption that animation is for kids.
Well, it's going to take time.
Yes.
Yeah. I was actually at a restaurant talking to some of the servers, and I had happened to mention, like, I really love animation, and I think I said, like, oh yeah, I love, I'm really excited about the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I said it to my server, and they were like, oh yeah, me too. And we started talking about that and, like, getting excited. And my server was, like, older than me. And suddenly I had this moment where I was like, I think in time, like, give it a few more years where all of the like adults will be people who grew up watching like animation with their parents, and then those parents like also watched animation and really liked it, and you'll have generations of people watching. It's going to be really cool in I don't know, 20 years or something, when like everybody is like, oh yeah, I love animation. It's just like, we've conquered the world with our animation desires.
Yes, it takes time, and I think Shrek was definitely proved that adults can really enjoy an animated film. And I think now we're going a little further, and I think Western culture is definitely accepting like anime more. And I think what anime brings to the table and Japanese animation brings is not only can animation be good for adults, like it has to be funny, like it's not just the Simpsons or South Park or whatever. Animation for adults can also be like thought-provoking and dramatic. And I just want to see more of that, because even now, like the animation that's being created is, we already have this other generation like Rebecca Sugar, who grew up with the old anime and all of that, and bringing those influences into what they're creating. And just like you said, like the cycle is just going to keep continuing and keep getting better. Like I am so excited for those kids right now who are watching Steven Universe, for example, and will become animators, and what are they going to bring to the table, because they grew up with this other amazing thing, Anyway, you also brought up a really great point in that, Dreamworks was an added competition to Disney, because with Shrek and with all their films, before that, Disney completely dominated the animation market in the U.S. and that's why they actually didn't have an Academy Award for Best Animated Picture, because they didn't think it was worth it, I guess, because there just wasn't enough animated films to like justify having an award for it, which relatively makes sense. I think they were a little late getting there, and because the Annie Awards we were giving animation recognition for a long time before that, and I mean that's why the Annie Awards exist, is because they weren't being represented. So they were like, well, we'll do our own thing. But Shrek was the first winner of the Animation Feature Film Award. So Best Animated Feature went to Shrek against Monsters, Inc. and like some Jimmy Neutron thing. But Monsters, Inc. is also really good, though. So I don't even know what I would choose if I were them. That's a hard decision.
I know. I love Monsters, Inc. too. That would be a tough one.
Yeah. Warning, I have a lot to say about the Academy Awards here, so we're also using Shrek as a way to talk about the Academy Awards. Here we go. Prior to the creation of that category, Beauty and the Beast was the only animated film nominated to receive Best Picture. It's still a rule that an animated feature can be nominated for Best Picture, but as we know, it's very, very unlikely. Like 2 other films have done it besides Beauty and the Beast. I think it's Up and WALL-E. There's a lot of controversy regarding the Academy Awards. I personally, I'll just like throw it out on the table right now. I personally do not like the Academy Awards at all.
Throwing shade at the Academy.
I am.
Kelly Anderson. Whoa! Take that.
The credibility of the award has fallen considerably, in my opinion, because I do still get excited when a film I think really deserves it wins, like Into the Spider-Verse, like you were talking about earlier. Definitely deserves it 100%. I just wish that it meant something, because I don't think it does. I don't know. I could still be bitter about how Big Hero 6 won over How to Train Your Dragon 2, but whatever.
Oh, okay. All right. Now it all makes sense.
But there is a reporter, okay, who has surveyed Academy members and what they voted for. Like he interviews these people anonymously and asks them what they voted for and why. And it just has revealed the horrible, horrible truth that of the few that he does interview, so, again, this is a small part of the population, but of the people who vote, but still, it's considerable, and it makes me want to cry.
I'm so excited. Just get it. I want to hear it.
Okay, here's what they said, and this was the year that Big Hero 6 and How to Train Your Dragon 2 were nominated. This voter says, quote, "I must admit that I have not seen How to Train Your Dragon 2, but I've seen Song of the Sea and The Tale of Princess Kaguya, both of which I loved very much. They were really unique. If I was just voting for animation, I'd have gone with Box Trolls, but since you have to consider everything, I went with Big Hero 6, unquote. They didn't even see How to Train Your Dragon 2. How the heck can you vote for it? Okay, next, this other voter, quote, "I only watch the ones that my kids want to see, so I didn't see the Box Trolls, but I saw Big Hero 6, and I saw How to Train Your Dragon 2, unquote. What? You just see the ones your kids see?
Oh man, you miss out on so much. The Box Trolls is awesome. I love that.
I know. Movie. Oh my goodness. A lot of them said they abstained because they didn't see any of them, which is good, because if you didn't see them, you shouldn't be voting for them, like a lot of these other people who didn't see all of the options. But still, that makes the pool considerably smaller of people who are actually voting for these films, so everyone's vote means more, and it shouldn't. I don't know. It just frustrates me.
What a sigh.
Yeah, I'm just so frustrated. I'm looking through them all. I'm just looking for... This voter literally just says, "I didn't do any of that." I didn't do any of that. And they abstained, so they didn't vote, but gosh. Goodness gracious. These people haven't even seen all of the options. How can they vote? And they clearly don't have an appreciation for the art form at all. They're just watching with their kids. Again, like that Western mindset of this is for kids, this is for kids. I'm above all of this. That's how I feel when I read this stuff, and when I think of the Academy Awards. That's what I feel, is these people who are just too high for this media.
I don't have as strong opinions on the Academy as you do, but I never really liked awards in the first place for things, and so I'm just gonna rely on that and say you're right. I think that all awards are basically just popularity contests and ways of affirming people who are already, doing well. Not all the time. Not all awards. I should rephrase. Not all awards are like that. But it's often that way, especially with art. And so awarding subjective art, for its merits can be very difficult when it's how can a story be more excellent than another story from a different time or a different culture or a different group of people? It's not really fair to say that one is superior or more excellent and deserving of best thing, best picture, best whatever. So I've never quite been interested in the Academy Awards or any awards of that kind, because to me it's just a waste of time to even think about any of them. Sure, I maybe a waste of time is too strong. I think that there are merits to like getting awards for things, but for me, it's not helpful to watching a movie. And I'd like to make the decisions on my own, and I'd like it to be based on what stories I'm more interested in. And when I saw Song in the Sea, I loved it. I didn't know that I was going to love it, but I was like, this is pretty. I want to watch this. And I did. And then I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. It's like, the fact that the Academy Awards aren't as prestigious as they are for other things in regards to animated films, I'm not surprised by, and I'm not surprised that you're upset about it, nor that other people would be either. And so it's really just maybe I'm a little bit skeptical when I think about it, because I think that it's just a bunch of people voting on who they think is the coolest.
And you make an excellent point and truly I agree with, that basically it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. If you had a moving experience watching a film or experience in any sort of media, then that is valid and powerful and deserves recognition. So it's all in what touches, each individual audience member and what you connect with. And not everyone, and I totally understand and am totally okay with, not everyone has to be, an animation fan, because there's so much other great media out there. And I'm really glad to be an animation fan. And even though it's not, the acceptance of it isn't as widespread as I'd like it to be, that shouldn't affect my enjoyment of it, and it shouldn't affect anyone else's enjoyment of whatever they love.
And I do really appreciate how when there are awards for films that deserve them, or for animated films that deserve them, like it gets them seen,
Yes.
by people who might not see them otherwise. That's great. That's serving the purpose. It's also recognizing people for their really hard work. So like there are, of course, are good things about it. And I think that those are important. So it's hard to just be, yes, they're bad, or yes, they're good. Like that's being one-sided in either direction, which I don't think is healthy.
No. And of the award shows that I like, I love the Annie Awards, because it is, created by animation industry people, voted on by people who understand animation, and is a celebration of all sorts of animation, and not only film, but in television and video games and anything and everything. So, and I think the Annie Awards have a different atmosphere. It's not about this big prestigious thing. It really is how I view it, as a community getting together to celebrate each other and to celebrate the progress of the entire industry as a whole. And that's what I think an award show should do, to celebrate your industry and give recognition to those who did a phenomenal job that year.
Yeah, I think that's when those award things are their best served, is when they are celebrating a community or people together who have done something great together, or they understand each other's like background or where they've come from. That's why there's so many great like gatherings of like Convergence or Comic-Con or the Spotlight Awards, or like those little ones are really great because they build community. And there is such a fine line on that. Like we could easily talk about, just like for the rest of this podcast, could be talking about awards in general and award ceremonies and how they are good or bad, and that I think, to tie it back to why we're doing this episode, it was a good thing for Shrek. It made a big difference to get an award and to move on into the industry. So in that standard, it's hard to say that the Academy Awards are unfair when you look at how it affected the entire industry after Shrek. right?
Absolutely.
I'm playing devil's advocate for you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about the film, because I have a few things I want to say.
Great, because I know everyone came here to just hear us talk about animation award shows and things. So let's go back to the film itself. All right.
Okay, so one thing that I found really fascinating is, we'll talk about the beginning. Pre-DreamWorks getting the movie, Steven Spielberg getting the book rights, right? One of the things that I found was really funny was picturing the fact that he wanted to cast Bill Murray as the ogre and Steve Martin as the donkey. And that's just a really funny pair to me that is so entirely different from what we ended up with.
Yes.
And then, not only that, but when they did go to DreamWorks and they ended up going to the computer animation and they started their casting, Nicolas Cage was the person they picked for the ogre. Nicolas Cage. Can you picture a Nicolas Cage Shrek?
No.
I cannot.
It's bad. I'm glad he said
So
no.
bad.
I'm so glad he said no.
Yes. I'm so glad he said no, too. He turned it down because he didn't want to be an ogre, apparently. He didn't think that was going to be a good look for him. But then the next guy who was going to do it was Chris Farley. And Chris Farley died during the voice recording. He was cast as Shrek, and they were doing, like, all the recording. He got, like, I don't know if it was all the way or most of the way through.
Yeah, at least most of the way, yeah.
Most of it. And then he died tragically, because he had a rough life, and that guy, such a tragic story when he passed. But Chris Farley would have been an amazing Shrek, I think. And when Mike Myers took over, I also heard that he also told them that he wanted them to rewrite the script because there was too much of Chris Farley in the script, because they had helped, like, he had been a part of the process for so long. So they rewrote a lot of dialogue because Mike Myers couldn't be like Chris Farley, and they had to change it so much.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. He respected. I really have a lot of respect for Mike Myers now after this movie and doing some research on it, because he, made some cool decisions, and I just appreciate that.
Yes, and he cared, not all voice actors care that much, and he did and put a lot of effort into it, and was part of why it was so successful.
Yeah he's really good at that. And Eddie Murphy being cast as the donkey is of course perfect too, because Eddie Murphy's known for his rapid fire speech and his ridiculous antics, and that tied so well together with the donkey, I thought, because the film itself and the characters, like we said earlier, are all this constant berating of fairy tales and pop culture, and Eddie Murphy speaking to all that and making these tiny little references to this and that and the other thing, those little things like that, and he's mumbling and talking to himself. I just think that really makes that. So their casting, I thought, ended up being the best that it could be, which is the reason the movie did so well.
Absolutely.
Because of those characters.
I agree. They all create such iconic characters, and they all put a lot of heart into it. So, and I appreciate that.
Let me ask you, Kelly, what are some of your favorite moments from the movie?
The whole thing is iconic, and the whole thing is ingrained into my brain, like from childhood memories. Some of my favorite scenes are the opening number. You get some all-star action.
All-star.
And it's such a great introduction to Shrek and him as a character. Like, you don't normally see this kind of gross, like, ridiculous character as the star, and he is. And an
anti-hero.
Yes, an introduction to his place in the world. Like, the villagers are coming to get him, and of course how he deals with that is hilarious and perfect. I just the walk when Donkey and Shrek first meet, and they're walking back to his place. All of that dialogue, everything that happens there is perfect and wonderful, and really gives a good introduction to the two of them as a pair, and Donkey just going on and on and on, and Shrek being like, shut up, what is happening? Like, oh, I love what you've done to the place. That's a nice boulder.
I like that boulder. That's a nice boulder.
Yeah, that whole scene is so quotable. The whole movie is.
Yeah, I mean, there were periods of my teenage years where we were just quoting moments at each other, you know. Every time someone would like be talking a lot, someone would one of my friends, I remember, would put his hand over your mouth, you know, you're covering someone's mouth, and then as soon as you take the hand off, they'd like continue to mumble, and then as soon as you take the hand off, they'd say, and then I ate some rotten berries. Ooh, I had some bad gas coming on me that day.
Yes. Or not the buttons, not the gumdrop buttons. Not the gumdrop buttons. That's another really iconic scene. Just that interrogation.
I mean, that dialogue with the Muffin Man is like,
do you know the Muffin?
She's married to the Muffin Man. The Muffin Man? The Muffin Man!
Who lives on Drury Lane. So yeah, the dialogue is brilliant. And of course, like you mentioned earlier, Duloc as Disneyland is so perfect. So what are some of your favorite scenes?
One of my favorite scenes is Robin Hood when he interrupts Shrek and Fiona in the woods, and he sings a song about being Robin Hood, and like it's the most ridiculous bit, you know. There's like one of the reasons I love it is like if you don't, I didn't notice this right away, but there is a theater stage in the background built into the trees, and so it's like a fake stage made out of trees and bushes. And
oh my goodness!
And so it's not right away. Like when Robin Hood first comes out, you know, he steals Fiona, and then they start singing, and then all the merry men they basically jump out of quote backstage because they come out of the wings of this little mini theater space. And if you look close, it's like the bushes are like made of wood and like cardboard, and they're like propped up and painted. It's a little like fake stage. It's so funny. Like you don't see it until you like really look, but it makes sense because Robin Hood and the Merry Men are like, you know, putting on this little show. Da 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 da. Oh, I steal from the rich and give to the needy. You know, it's vaudeville. Yeah. And
it's so wonderful.
And I that's one of my favorite moments. And then the fact that Fiona, you know, jumps into like a Matrix moment and like beats everybody up and like brushes her hair aside, and the culmination of which is when she punches through the friar, punches the accordion that he's playing, and then the music stops because he was playing the music on the accordion the whole time, which you didn't realize. You thought it was just like, you know, it's a movie, there's music. But
yes,
it's actually in one of the characters. That's one of my favorite moments of all these films. I've always loved that one.
I agree. Oh my goodness. And speaking of the music, the whole soundtrack is amazing. And this is another thing that Shrek really started, was all of this pop music in film soundtracks, animation film soundtracks, as well as, and this is something they added much later on, they decided to add the ending song. But that's a huge thing that's now in so many animated movies, like end with a big musical number.
Yeah. And
Shrek started it.
Yeah, Shrek. I will clarify and say Shrek started that in animated movies.
Yes.
You know, because that has been something that's been going on in like entertainment history for centuries. You know,
absolutely.
We got to end on a bang with a big musical number. Like that's been happening for so long, and the fact that it is in animated films too is just beautiful. It's like history being, you know, reinvigorated by technology, and that's just really special. Again, I'm going to bring up the theater. So coming from the theater, it's in musical history, musicals were like pop music, like that's what people listened to, was pop music that was from musicals. There's all this music from Gershwin and Rodgers and Hammerstein that was like, that's what people listened to on the radio, or besides classical music and jazz, like that's what was popular. And then with like rock and roll, with the Beatles and like all these new bands coming out in the 50s and beyond, that totally changed, and musicals like didn't end up in the popular music stream for a really long time. And it's only been recently, frankly, until that has happened again. And now it's movie musicals, because like
Greatest Showman.
The Greatest Showman, thank you. That is, I hear those songs on the radio all the time. And movies like Shrek and other animated films using popular music is like, it's about time.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. I also just want to mention that the composers are Harry Gregson Williams and John Powell, because I love them both.
Why do you love them?
Because Harry Gregson Williams did Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, and John Powell is, of course, my favorite How to Train Your Dragon person. So
right, of course. I
of
didn't
course.
know that one.
Guys.
That was just a joke for all the people who have not listened to the episodes where Kelly talks about How to Train Your Dragon every time. So.
I think I managed to get How to Train Your Dragon into every episode anyway. Like, it's such a foundation to my animation fan spirit that it just comes out whenever I talk about animation in general.
That's fair. I think overall, the reason that this film, one of the reasons it did so well, is its irreverent humor was so unexpected that it, like we said earlier, it catered to both kids and adults. And those unexpected moments, being things like Shrek, his hand being like 4 times the size of Fiona's face, and there's a couple times where he just like shoves his hand in her face, and it's just like very unexpected.
Yes.
The fact that another one, that Donkey has to go and look for a blue flower, red thorns, and running through the woods, and then he's like, "Oh, this would be so much easier if I wasn't colorblind." It's things like that. And then I think the other one that I really love is when they make balloon animals out of a frog and a snake. They literally blow into the animal and turn it into a balloon.
So good.
It's like things like that are really unexpected, but like absurd and playful, but also like adults really get it because it's so silly. And I think that overall is why it's so fun. And it, because of, like we said already earlier, with the characters, the actors, the whole plot and everything, even though like the plot is still ultimately quite basic, it's still the story of hero saves girl, gets girl, but there's like much more to it than that. It's just done in a different way, and I just love that because it's just unexpected. That's probably the unexpected irreverence is the phrase I would put to it, I think.
Yeah, Shrek is definitely worth a watch if you're an animation fan at all and have somehow not seen it. If only just for its part in animation history, but also because it is excitingly enjoyable to watch. Mm-hmm. Even now. And now I'm realizing and understanding things I did not get as a child.
Mm-hmm. It gets funnier as you get older.
It does.
I definitely caught more jokes this time that I didn't know before. I have one more fun fact thing that I wanted to mention. First off, the film premiered at Cannes Film Festival in 2001, right? Which is in France, and like a big deal. And after that premiere, that was like the beginning of this cult following that happened for Shrek. That some people like loved it then, so much so that it slowly started to spread. And then when it was really released, and marketed, that spread everywhere. And like I said earlier, it caused some of these like meta memes and these like internet things to really take hold. And one of those two of those things that I wanted to mention that I find fascinating, that I've known about for some time, but I've never like actually looked into until now, is there's a group of people across the world from the internet who liked Shrek so much, ironically, that they wanted to make a shot-for-shot remake called Shrek Retold. All of the exact same lines and everything, but it's like made by people from across the world. So like this one group collected shots from whoever wanted to submit something, if it's animated or if it's like you pretending to be Shrek or whatever else, and it was put together. And it's the full movie, but it is ridiculous because there are like, you know, kids who are entering and they're like speaking all of the lines and they're talking, you know, I'm saying the lines of Shrek, you know, he's married to the Muffin Man. The Muffin Man? The Muffin Man. You know, and there's like little like hand puppets coming across the screen for that shot. And it's like so childish, but so adorable. And that's like an hour and a half of a movie.
I love it
on
so
YouTube.
much. This is animation fans at their best.
It literally is. That is, and I think that's so special and so fun. There's not a ton of movies that have caused like a franchise like this to have spun out, especially in such a way that Shrek is, because it's so ironic and irreverent, and you know, making fun of itself and making fun of everything that it has come from. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is something that we could actually go to. It's called Shrek Fest. It takes place in Madison, Wisconsin, which is not that far from where Kelly and I live. I live in Minneapolis. Kelly's in Iowa, and Wisconsin is also in the Midwest. And it's apparently a whole festival based on Shrek, where people come in costumes and they have onion eating contests, and they quote the movies, and they like put them all up everywhere. And
it's just like a Shrek themed Renaissance festival.
Yes, it's purely based on the Shrek universe, which
Wow.
I didn't know that there would be a Shrek universe, but apparently there is.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
So we should go sometime, because that
That
sounds pretty
so
fun.
good. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. Everyone who's doing all of that, please continue.
Keep it up.
Keep it up. Keep up the good work, Shrek
That's
fans.
right. So that we can come visit someday.
Oh, that's wonderful. I just had also been trying to find out that whether or not there really is going to be a Shrek 5.
Oh, yeah. You know, okay,
Like
so
a reboot. Because
let's
that's
go
the world we live in.
That's ridiculous. Like, I don't think that should happen, because it's already gone quite a bit. There's 4 films, there's a musical, there's a spin-off, there are a ton of holiday specials and short films and TV things. Like, we don't need a 5th Shrek. We just don't.
We don't. But here's the thing. 2 things. One, DreamWorks has now switched, ownership. So they're going to do whatever the heck they want to reboot and revitalize whatever.
True, yeah.
2, I didn't think we needed a Toy Story 4, but I'm glad that it exists.
All right. That's fair. That's fair.
Also, I am thankful that, at least as far as we know, they're keeping the main cast the same, which, I think it's fun to redo casts. Please do that. But, like, in an animation reboot, like, all these remakes and stuff, yes, please, redo the cast. Love it. Because it's, like, live action stuff that Disney is doing. But when it's animated and, the whole cast is still here, just use them, because they're part, like we were talking about, they're part of the iconicness of these characters.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It would be weird. It's
like Bugs Bunny's voice, It's like an iconic voice itself, And there are people who can impersonate that, or make their own their own version. But the way that Bugs Bunny says things, or the way that Shrek says things, has become like a memeable thing. So
yes. Okay, so what have you been watching recently, Josh?
I always dread this question.
Please tell me it's Steven Universe.
It is Steven Universe. I'm
Good.
on season 5. So,
Finally.
yes.
Oh my gosh, how far are you?
I'm only like 3 or 4 episodes in, so I have however many left.
Josh Palmer.
I know.
The other thing I want to catch up, see how far you are in Breath of the Wild, because that's another episode I want to talk to with you about, Breath of the Wild. So how far are you in that?
Yes. I can't wait. I think about that probably every day.
I continuously write notes about what we're gonna talk about for the Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I'm still playing that game.
Well, yeah, me too.
200 hours later.
I don't know how many hours I've put into that game, but it's a good amount. It's like the only video game that I've been playing since, I don't know, 2017 or no, I don't know. It's phenomenal, and I have beaten all of the divine beasts, and I have the Master Sword, and I'm debating on, do I fight Calamity Ganon now, or do I get the classic Link outfit by getting all of the shrines first? Because I'm pretty close. Like, I only need 30 more. So I figure, like, why not finish all the shrines, get, like, I look like classic Link with my green hat and my green clothes, and now I've got the Master Sword, and maybe there's a Hylian shield somewhere I can find. I don't actually know, but it just would be really special for me to do that. So I think I might do that before we film it, or before we shoot the next podcast about it.
Well, feel free to play it at your own pace in the way you want to, because that was what Breath of the Wild is all about.
That's right.
So I will not rush you. Have you found all of the memories?
No, I actually still have like 3 or 4 left.
I would highly encourage you to do that.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed finding them, so I still have to finish that. And once I get the shrines, once I get the memories and defeat Ganon, then we can make our episode.
Great, because then you'll have experienced most of it.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone needs to find all of the Korok seeds. Not needed.
Oh, dear God, no. Please, no.
Don't do it. Don't torment yourself.
Don't do it. It's not worth it.
Have you seen the trailer for the Breath of the Wild sequel, though? Or have you been avoiding it?
I've been avoiding it. I've been avoiding it because I'm not sure what it will get spoiled. I don't know if anything. Probably nothing, but I just have been avoiding it. Is there something, like, should I watch it?
I don't think it's going to spoil much for you. But if you want to wait till you're done, I'm impressed that you made it this far without knowing what the trailer looks like.
What can I say? One of my skills is not watching things.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you're on my podcast.
I'm really good at that.
Well, I will say that I love the Zelda trailer for the sequel to Breath of the Wild. And if anything, it really just gives a very interesting tone to what the sequel will be. And of course, I've watched all these things and read all this debate over what it means and what's happening and all these things, which I'm very, very, very excited about. And I hope all these theories are true. But in all honesty, the biggest things I'm excited about are A, Zelda's haircut, B, the tone of the whole thing. And those are, so if you watch it, it's not like, I don't think it really spoils anything, because ultimately we all know what happens at the end of a Zelda game.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's true. He wins. Spoiler, he wins.
He wins, yeah. So it's up to you. But it is a very well-made trailer and gets me excited, and I have lots of theories that we can talk about when we talk about Breath of the Wild.
Okay. All right, well, we'll do that. And then I'll watch the trailer before then. The other things that I've been watching is I've been watching Stranger Things.
Yes.
And that's not animation related, but
that's
I've been watching a lot of that. It's just been awesome. I watch it every season it comes out, like, right away. And I watch it with my wife, and we We eat orange chicken from Trader Joe's while we watch it. Apparently, that's our staple.
That's amazing and wonderful and perfect.
I can't watch the show without eating it, and I can't eat the food without watching it. So I tried once, and it was bad. So so I've been watching that, and then Wreck-It Ralph 2. Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Yeah, you haven't seen that yet?
I just started it. And I haven't actually finished it because I got too distracted because I was like, oh, I should probably rewatch Shrek. So
yeah, because we're talking about it.
Yeah. So I did that instead. I have also been watching Cupcake and Dino. Have you seen that?
What is that? Wait, no, I think I've heard of this. Tell me the things.
It's on
I have
Netflix.
Heard of this. Yes.
It's a story. It's a cartoon TV show. They do like 2 episodes in each episode. They're like 11 minutes long each. And it's about 2 brothers, a cupcake and a dinosaur. And they own a business called General Services. And what they do is anything. So people ask them to do things and they do them. So,
that sounds like the best premise of a television show I've ever heard, and I'm writing it down on my master list of things I need to watch right now.
It's ridiculous. It's so funny. It's one of those, it's very yelly. So if you don't like cartoons where they're like yelling a lot and getting really excited and like loud, then it might not be for you.
Most cartoons are like that.
Yes, most of them are. So this is definitely one of them. But like one of the examples is like their grandmother is a meatloaf, and their dad owns a grocery store, and he has a bag. He is a paper. I think he's a man wearing a paper bag, maybe, or he just is a paper bag. It's a bit unclear. And so people will ask them like to mow their lawn or like, do various like tasks, clean my house, do inventory for my store. And there's all these quirky people, their greatest nemesis is a rooster who also owns a general service business. and so they're constantly competing. And it's very silly. And they're constantly singing, like they sing a song in every episode, and
good.
The dinosaur is like the most optimistic, bouncy little guy. He's a T-Rex, but he's really small.
Yes.
So
it has 2 seasons. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah,
wow.
2 seasons on Netflix. So there's a lot to get through. There's no real story. It's just it's just fun.
That's fine. I've added it to my watch list. So always looking for fun little short things to watch during my lunch break. So
yeah, that's
there
a good one.
you go.
And I don't. Yeah, that's a really good one to watch. So I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but I've been watching Final Space. Have you heard of that one?
Oh my goodness, I've definitely heard of it. Have I watched it? No. Is
Okay.
that a problem? Yes.
Yes. Okay, so Final Space is on TBS. It's the cartoon that Olin Rogers created. And
Oh yeah.
Kelly is to How to Train Your Dragon as Josh is to Olin Rogers.
Yes. Yes.
So I love everything that man does. And he created this cartoon it was originally called Gary Space, and then it was turned into Final Space, and the character's name is Gary. And it's so funny. It's definitely more adult than not, because there's a lot of gore and there's some swearing or some like other more adult things that happen in it, but not even to the extent of like The Simpsons or stuff like that.
Okay.
It's
not Rick and Morty.
It's not Rick and Morty, no, but it's on TBS, and it was produced by Conan. So it has more of that style, but it's very comic booky. It's so it's very fun. And season 2 just started like a couple weeks ago.
Well, great. I'll have to catch up. Get going. Because Attack on Titan ended recently, and it's kind of sad now not having that to watch every week. And man, Yep. But I'm watching Fruits Basket, of course.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And it just got to, like, the really good stuff. And the original series, you can listen to that episode on the podcast that I talked about, Fruits Basket of the early 2000s. But
and then the remake, yeah.
The remake has a lot of stuff that I haven't seen. And I know generally what happens from the manga. I didn't read it, but I kind of, after I finished the first series, you know, you assume they're never going to finish it again. So I just like looked online, like, what's the end game here? Because I wanted to know. So I know like generally what's going to happen with the main plots, but apparently not all of them, because some things were happening this last episode and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? I love it and I hate it and I want more of it. So yeah, the remake is just so wonderful and really gives it does a good job of creating anticipation and building on things that will come in the future, which the first series did not do. So very excited about that. A Silent Voice is now on Netflix, which I need to rewatch because it's the most beautiful film ever. I highly recommend. And I will probably be doing an episode on it soon because I love it so much and it is so impactful. A Silent Voice follows a deaf girl, and a classmate of hers who was a bully. And so it's about how they kind of reconnect after their childhood years, and is a really good exploration of bullying and depression and deaf culture too, and how we interact with those that are disabled. And it's just it's a phenomenal film because the main character is the bully, so he's kind of hard to root for, but that's what makes it even better, if that makes sense.
Okay. That sounds cool.
Highly recommend.
Okay, I'll check that out.
So, yeah. And of course, I've watched lots of other things, but those are the main things right now.
Okay, cool. Well, we should probably end this episode like with a message, you know, because everything needs to have a message.
Oh, I agree wholeheartly.
Okay.
What's your What's your message, Josh?
I think our message should be Shrek themed, and in that it is that you should accept yourself the way that you are.
Yes.
Totally unrelated to everything we talked about, but it's still
but
true.
That is the message. That embrace who you are, and others will love you for being you.
Yeah, that's all we got. That's the message.
All right, thanks, Josh, so much for joining me here today talking about Shrek.
Thank you, Kelly. This was lots of fun. We'll see you next time.
Alrighty, bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening, and a special thank you to our listeners who voted for today's episode. Our current Patreon poll includes Yuri on Ice, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, Violet Evergarden, and Danny Phantom. If you want to hear us talk about one of these amazing television series, or you want to learn more about supporting the podcast, stop by our Patreon website at www.patreon.com/Fanimated. Let us know your thoughts about Shrek on Facebook and Instagram at Fanimated Podcast. You can also email us at fanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. The art for this podcast is done by me. You can find me on Instagram at CandorDraw. The music is provided by Purple Planet Music, and a huge thank you to Josh for joining me today. We can't wait to see what topic our Patreons vote for next. But in the meantime, stay tuned and stay animated. I almost forgot to talk about it. But today, the poster for the Steven Universe movie was released. And oh my gosh, I can't talk about it because Josh hasn't seen Steven Universe. But I am freaking out. Like, the whole last half of work, I was just smiling ridiculously. And I was like, Kelly, you need to calm down. Like, people are going to think you're crazy or something. But I'm just super, super, super excited for the direction they're taking Steven's story. And by the time this episode of Fanimated comes out, we will have already gotten the trailer from San Diego Comic-Con next week. And so future me, I really hope you like it. And I hope everyone listening to this episode really loves the trailer. And I hope we're all geeking out and finding every little last thing and theorizing on everything. And I can't wait. That's all. That's just, I wanted to say that because I'm really excited. And that's kind of all celebrating these little things makes me excited. And that's why I love animation fandoms. The end. Okay.